What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? It's your boy StephenMotivate back with another episode of The Journey. And today I want to talk about something so serious. As an entrepreneur, you always have to think about your priorities. What are your priorities? What is the focus of uh, your business, your entrepreneurial endeavors, your hopes, your goals, your dreams, and uh, prioritizing is so important. But it's most important if you've ever listened to any of these people that are successful in some of their interviews, you typically find that people are prioritizing their faith and that their faith in God is very important to them. How they show up in the world, how they show up in business is very much tied to how they are prioritizing and putting God first. And so I want to encourage you, if you're an entrepreneur, to put God first. But I want to debunk the myth that putting God first means being morally perfect, because it does not mean that you are morally perfect when you put God first. If you put God first, it doesn't mean you're morally perfect. And if you are morally perfect, it doesn't necessarily mean you're putting God first. Many people get confused by this and think that, oh, if I'm not, praying 1,000 times, if I'm not doing everything right, if I'm not, always forgiving my neighbor or never making a mistake, then maybe I'm not putting God first. And I can tell you from personal experience that that's just not true. Putting God first is more so about making sure you're fully, completely, continually relying on God as your number one source versus the tendency and the actual times when you will actually put something else first and you'll actually go off course and you'll actually make the wrong decision. And if you think about this is you put something first. It's very rarely that you're perfect. Let's say you put your parents first or you put your family first. Doesn't mean you never miss a family event. It doesn't mean that you never get in an argument with your family. It doesn't mean that um, you are the perfect child or the perfect parent. It simply means that in terms of your priorities, when priorities are competing, when priorities are hard to differentiate which comes first, you make it easy by putting your family first. If it's your spouse, it doesn't mean that you walk around your husband or wife and, you know, wipe the dirt off of the bottom of their shoes every time they take a step. That would be annoying and overkill and, frankly, doing the most. So putting your spouse first rather could look like, hey, if there's a competing priority and I've got to go to work or I've got to do something for my wife or husband, then I'm going to consider them first, or I'm going to skip the work trip or skip the dinner so I can put my spouse first. And so if you think about this as it relates to your faith or your relationship with God, putting God first doesn't look like being perfect. It more so looks like relying on, being dependent on, continually going back to God as your source versus always starting with God as your source. And this can be controversial for some, but frankly, when you look at people in the Bible, when you look at David's life, one of a very famous Bible character, you do not see moral uh, perfection out of his life. You don't see moral perfection out of all of his decision make, all of out of his decision making. You don't see moral perfection out of all of his choices. You see the human tendency to make mistakes, to make poor choices, to have human emotion, to be scared, to have fear, to be nervous, to be unsure. You see all those things, but you also see David coming back to God. You are my rock. You are my hope. In you will I trust. These affirmations, these songs, these hymns, these psalms, where it's a continual reliance back to God, even once I've strayed. And when I've made a big blunder or really made a huge mistake, absolutely, I recognize my moral imperfections. And then again, it doesn't make me want to run from God, it makes me want to run to God. And so when you think about this as it relates to business, if you're prioritizing your faith, it really helps you keep everything else in the right order, because you're going to make mistakes, and there are going to be things you can't explain, and there are going to be things that emotionally harm you or emotionally frustrate you, so much so that it can become in competition with everything else in life. The business is in competition with you raising your kids, or you having a good home life with your spouse, or you talking on the phone with your mother. But when you come back to my faith and say, hey, I know that with my strong beliefs, that I know I should spend time with my family. I should spend time with my wife. I should spend time reading the Bible, learning, going back to God as my source, not getting so puffed up and proud of all my accomplishments and thinking, oh, look what everything I've done on my own. Look how important I am. That only leads to failure. If not immediately, then eventually. So you don't want to do that. You can keep God first by just simply knowing in your heart that I don't want to make a decision without God. It doesn't mean you don't stumble and make a decision where you don't pray or you don't, but it's what's the posture? What is the attitude of your heart? Where's your heart at? Um, it says that the Bible talks about how humans, we look on the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And so, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, I've heard a lot of successful business people talk about their faith and talk about how important it is to them. And I've got the shirt on today, so it made me want to talk about it. Put God first, and it will work out for you. And that doesn't look like always getting everything right, at least for most people, at least for me, at least for David in the Bible. If it looks like getting everything right for you, so be it. Continue on, and you can maybe get the All-Star Christian Award for always being morally perfect and never disappointing God in any way possible, or yourself, right? But for everyone else, you're the likelihood that you're going to make mistakes and you're not always going to get it right is probably pretty high. And the key to putting God first is not always getting it right, but it's always coming back to what you know is your source, is your truth, is your center, and your faith. For me and for many people that have grown and been successful in business, we found that our faith is the thing that keeps us centered. It's putting God first. It's always coming back to God, especially in times of uncertainty. And so if you know this, hopefully this helps you, because the tendency is to think, oh, I screwed up. Oh, I'm a failure. Oh, let me run. Let me never go back to church because I keep messing up. Why would I don't fit in? Or let me never pray because God disappointed me and things didn't work out the way I wanted, so I don't pray anymore. That's always the tendency, to kind of run from God. But we would say that that's an attack, um, from the enemy of our lives, of our destiny, to make us run from God. If we keep God first, we always should want to run to God, whether we've done something right or done something wrong. We always run back to God. It's just like with your parents. Do something right or wrong, you still want to be able to call them mom or dad, because that's the relationship you have. So that's my thought today. If you're going to be successful in business, it might help if you start putting God first. And what that looks like doesn't mean perfection. Rather, it means a continual reliance. I keep coming back to the thing that is my source, which is God. I hope that helps you the way it's helped me. And as always, stay motivated. It's your boy, StephenMotivate. Peace.